Hello, everyone, and welcome. It's nice to see all the pretty faces out there. I'm Garrison Duke, and I'm a director here at Diversity, and welcome to our Diversity Talks presentation. First off, I'd like to do a land acknowledgement. Diversity recognizes that our work takes place on the ancestral, traditional, and unceded territories of the Simiamu, Katsi, Coquitlam, Kwantlen, Kekwat, Musqueam, and Tsawwassen First Nations. The knowledge, traditions, and ongoing contributions of these communities are significant in providing context to the work we do, and Diversity recognizes the importance that reconciliation has in building truly and strong and inclusive communities. So we are pleased to host our first event, Diversity Talks. It's a platform for intentional and timely discussions. Diversity Talks, conversations for change. So this series, our intent is that we want to amplify different perspectives and ignite conversations on issues that are important to our diverse community here in Surrey, Lower Mainland, and Canada. I'm pleased to kick this series off for Black History Month, a time to reflect for many of us in that community of the excellent contributions and resiliency that we've seen out of the Black community over many years. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest speaker, and I would say a friend of mine. We've gotten to be friends over the last year, Dr. Magassa. And he is right now at the University of Victoria, the principal strategist of the Community Engagement EDI Anti-Racism in Education. He is also an associate faculty at UVic Social Justice Diploma Program, including Intercultural Studies and Practice, and teaches at Royal Roads Masters in Global Leadership Program. In addition to that, over the last 17 years, Dr. Magassa has been teaching at UBC's Center for Intercultural Communications. And in his spare time, I may add, he has a consultant company, Intercultural Capacity Building. And Dr. Magassa, I do not have enough time in an hour to mention all your attributes. So quite an accomplished career. So the floor is yours. Welcome, Dr. Magassa.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Garrison. Yeah, I'm really humbled by this introduction, because I want to say that every time I think about all the things I do, I also think about all of you and all the things you do, not only in your professional work, but every day, day in, day out, especially in this sector of nonprofit organization, where you do more than you get paid or recognized for. I know it very well because I used to work at the Immigrant Services Society, ISS, 16 years ago. When I first came to Canada 21 years ago, I started with ISS, and I have seen co-workers going above and beyond to service this community. So I want to say thank you all for the work you have been doing for people like me who made these countries their home. I came from Senegal in West Africa, and from a tribe that oftentimes elders say that our tribe is older than the world. I don't know what that means, but they always brag that our culture is older than the world. So what I want to say about this is that, talking about my culture then, it is important for me to say that there is one key character of this culture that I want to share with all of you. And this is that where I come from, we insist that what is important, it is not what kind of job you do. It is most importantly the people you hang around with, the people you spend your time with. So I want to just acknowledge that and say thank to you all today for making time for me to be with you, to learn and to grow together, and especially to do this work called the anti-racism work. So my system is behaving a bit, but I hope I can fix this right away. So what I say is that today we're going to be talking about a topic that is very, very, very timely, but very difficult also. because we're going to be talking about anti-racism. And I want to just say anti-racism is not easy. Can you see my screen, my PowerPoint? Is it okay? No problem?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So it is not easy to talk about anti-racism, or especially to talk about racism, because many of us are coming from different angles. Some of us have been living with this all our life, and it is traumatizing, it is difficult, it is painful, but most importantly, it is so painful that oftentimes we rather not talk about it, because when we talk about it, people try to silence us. How often you have come across people, you say, oh, I know Moussa was very racist to me. And someone say, come on, I have known Moussa for 17 years. He might be insensitive and sometimes say things that in a bad way, but I have known Moussa for 17 years. Moussa is not racist. So the person defends the person who is racist to you because of their knowledge of that friend. Of course, Moussa is not going to be racist to that person because they are friends. But you are silenced. And you are treated to be a liar and to be someone gossiping or bringing in the organization some news that are not real. So you can imagine how tough it is. That's why today's workshop, I want to challenge us to talk about something that is a bit here, but we don't talk about it. It is to be able to say, move beyond the allyship. Let's talk about more than just allyship and how we become co-conspirator. Because if you don't find the ally in the person you're telling the story, you need them to move beyond that and be a co-conspirator. Okay, I have known Moussa and he's not a racist. However, what you're telling me here, I'm interested to hear what we can do so that the way I feel about Moussa, so that you too, you can feel about Moussa that way. What can we do? That's what is needed. So what I want to do today is to go also beyond the George Floyd case, because every organization now thinks that racism is started with George Floyd. In this picture, the gentleman on the right-hand side even tell you that it is 400 years old. Well, 400 years of racism is just the experience of Black Americans who have been deported there as a slave. For the rest of us, spread it all over the world, we know that it is more than 400,000. It started with the world. And the people of my tribe, the Soninke people, or the people of Aswaninke, who come all the way from the area of the Pyramid of Egypt, will tell you that racism started with the world. So one of the things I want to do though is when we talk about this, I hope that we understand therefore that there is an ethical requirement and even a legal requirement for our institution, our organization, and ourselves to adopt, to develop, and to implement best practices in anti-racism work and EDI principle and policies. I have seen organizations who talk about EDI and they don't want to use the word anti-racism. I even come across another situation that was really beautiful. That conversation was so nice. I couldn't believe that these people don't get paid to talk about what they think. Someone told me, no, the word anti-racism is too scary. Why not we use the word unity? Unity to sugarcoat the conversation about racism. That's how pervasive the system is. So it is our ethical and moral responsibility to do this work. And we have to do it from the center, not on the corners of our desk. And it has to be vertical, not just from the top to the bottom. It is every single one of us. Because it is imperative that we recognize that prejudice and discrimination, whether they are racism they are ethnocentrism, they are religious bigotry, gender-based violence, xenophobia, homophobia, misogynistic, are all prevalent in this Canadian society. And that's why we need to do this work ethically and morally. And many studies have also reported for decades that racial prejudice and discrimination against Indigenous people, Black people, and other people of color are crude realities in Canada. Now, my question to you is simple, my friends. When we go back, since I told you that we have to move beyond allyship, then what is anti-racism allyship even? What does that mean? Being ally. Can you put it in the chat? 1 or 2 words. And I think we should have a prize for people who did very well. Yeah. Come on, I'm looking at the chat. Tell us, when you hear the word anti-racism allyship, what it means for you. So yeah, Garrison and the team, Annie, Jenny, you can read up some of the words loud if you want. So I hear someone say it is proactive instead of reactive. Anyone want to read up?
Understanding empathy.
Understanding empathy, yes.
Yeah, there's a bunch coming in. There's friendship, respect, standing with those experiencing racism, speak when you see it, creating safe spaces, supporting people, believing their stories, being informed.
Someone say that it is also being informed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, go ahead, Jenny.
Respecting the differences, having the courage to stand up and stand for anti-racism for humankind, not just yourself. Somebody said learning.
Yes. Annie, go ahead.
Be vocal.
Someone says be vocal, and another
vocal.
person says pay attention when listening to them.
Excellent. Garrison?
Providing support in the struggle. That's a good point.
And unlearning. So as you can see, this is very straightforward. It is easy for us. But now, I have another challenge for you. Since allyship is all these things, what is racism? When you hear the word racism, then what comes to your mind? What is it? How it manifests in people, attitude, behaviors, and belief system? And what are the impacts of racism on individual groups and organizations? Again, I want you to post it in the chat.
People are posting already, and they've said it's structural, it's oppression, judgment, bullying, unjust treatment on the basis of race, missed opportunities. Racism equals the belief that one group is superior to another. Somebody says it's taught hate. It's believing one group is superior, it's discrimination and superiority and judgment.
Excellent. So everyone who look at this chat, I want you to look at these words very carefully, because now your next activity is going to be very simple. What I'm going to ask you to do is, I'm going to send you in a breakout room. Oh yes, breakout room. People love breakout room. So I'm going to send you in a breakout room, and the challenge you will have there, because I only give you 7 minutes, the challenge you will have is to look at all these words, and you have to do 3 things. I want you to be able to put these words under these headings. Choose the words that should fall under beliefs, the ones that should fall under attitude, and the ones that should fall under behavior. So in your group, discuss, and you have 7 minutes to come up with the list of words that fall under belief, the one under attitude, and the one under behavior. And then be ready to report back when we come back. Have someone to volunteer to tell us what was the decision. Are you ready? If yes, time traveling, number 1. See you on the other side.
I'll stay put.
Yes, that's a good idea.
I will also stay put, just
That's good, Jenny.
recording and yeah.
Okay, how are we doing?
Was your presentation having troubles loading?
Yeah,
It's
but
funny.
now it is, I think it is working now. We have few people we still here who haven't gone to their breakout room. Alita, Melody, Solmaz, Sarika.
Hi, I have some problem in I automatically came out of that. Can
Yeah, where is it?
can you do me a favor? Sending
Yeah,
me
we put
again?
you back
Or?
there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sarika.
Jenny, you are the host. Can you do that?
Yeah, I'm just trying to.
Yeah. As a co-host, I can't put people back there. So Melody was in room 1. So what we can do, we can switch her on room 9.
Okay.
Sarika, we
Yeah.
put you on in room number 4.
Okay.
Okay, you go on Sarika. You have to click join when you see the sign.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. So Melody, you have to click join. There's supposed to be things that say join. Can you do that?
Right now, I don't see anything on my screen.
Okay.
Yes, I got it.
You got it.
Better
Excellent.
late than never.
Salma,
Thank you.
Salma, are you having trouble to go?
I think by mistake I didn't join, and now I don't have an option to join. I was in another like meeting and I switched here. That's why I lost it. If you can invite me again in the break room, appreciate that. Thank you.
Let me put you in a room that has less numbers than the others. So let's see.
Okay.
Melody, do you still need some help? And Gail?
So Gail, I'm going to send you in one of the breakout room.
Sure. Sorry, I'm late.
No problem.
No worries. So it will ask you to join and you have to click and say, yes, join. Okay, here you go. Alison, welcome. I'm going to send you, your audio is buffering for now. So I wait until you're ready. Yeah, you're good. Alison, you are here. I'm going to assign you in a group number 12. So you have to click join so that you can go automatically there.
Okay, thank you. Apologies for my lateness.
No worries.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Melody, you still here? So Jenny, you're getting more people coming, joining now.
Yes, I'm admitting them and we'll see what we can do for them.
So
Hi,
Catherine, we're sending you to room number 4. You have to click join so that you can join them. See you soon. Okay, I think we got everyone.
Yes, Melody's still here. Are you having trouble, Melody? Okay. And there's another person, I'm not sure of your name. Your Zoom name is a series of letters and numbers. If you need help, please just unmute yourself and identify yourself, and we can send you somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, they will be back in less than 2 minutes.
Hi, Tina. I'm going to send you to a room.
14.
Sure.
Yes, I believe it was 14. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I've done this so many times.
Yeah, it's
Well, on the 15th last Wednesday, I was doing a session at UVic, 120 people
wow.
for Black History Month. So, and people were asking that they want a whole day event. I say 2 hours Zoom was enough. Yeah.
You could do a whole workshop on this, like for the full day. It's just,
Yeah.
especially when you're engaging people. In person must be fantastic.
Yeah, in person is fun. It is.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. I usually do it in person. I do it 2 hours and half, maximum 3 hours, minimum 3 hours. I mean, half a day. This way, you can also build in 15 minutes here and there, so that people can have more time to mingle and get to know each other. Yeah, but I think COVID just taught us one thing: it is to be flexible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they are coming.
It was an interesting discussion.
That's good to know, Harsha. Well done.
Harsh.
So yeah, so people are just coming back. Harsha, don't go away. My question will be to ask you once everyone is back. You say it was an interesting discussion. Can you briefly tell us why it was interesting?
Yeah.
And how was it to do this categorization?
Yeah, we were categorizing into beliefs, attitude, and behavior. Some of them were pretty straightforward. That okay, there is a belief that my race is superior to yours, and that contributes to racism. There was one very interesting input, unknown, where we were trying to figure out when somebody says unknown. I don't know whether it was racism. How do we categorize it, and what is the root cause for being in the zone of being unknown towards racism?
Yes,
that is
excellent.
That we want.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Question to everyone here: how was it to do this exercise? Anyone? I see Cindy smiling there.
I'm smiling out of sheer embarrassment because I wasn't able to see the exercise. So we kind of chatted about why we were participating and just shared a little bit about our own experiences.
Yeah, that's good. Anyone else? Any other people? Yeah, I have Berita who raised her hand. Berita, go ahead.
Yeah, for me, it was interesting because usually I look at racism as a whole with different characteristics, but breaking it down into those three categories had me just thinking some more.
Yes, definitely. Thinking about it. Alison, Ireland, I see that you are shaking your head. And then Lauren. Yeah, Alison, go ahead.
Sure. I'll just say around the behavior one, we were putting most into behaviors, but sometimes some of the terms like structural, we thought they are behaviors, but we even mentioned that they are, whether it was more on the small scale individual behaviors or communal large scale behaviors.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you so much. I see someone says that racism is start from belief, then reflect on one's attitude and behaviors. Lauren Fisher, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that while we're doing this exercise, what struck me was the connections between beliefs, attitudes, and behavior. I think as we were categorizing these different aspects of racism, it became apparent that some of them could fit under multiple categories, and that made me think about how how these behaviors, attitudes, and beliefs are connected to each other. And it makes me curious about the way forward, about how to, I'm curious about what happens if you impact one area, what happens to the others, kind of curious about that.
Yes, definitely. Because you hear sometimes people say, oh, I don't see it. I don't see it. So if they don't see it, they don't believe you. So that means, where is the attitude, the racist attitude and action, where it is embedded? So I'm going to quickly go for two people and then move on. I have Tarana, Core, and then Pil, Joe. So Tarana, go ahead.
Yes, thanks for actually this breakout room exercise. While we were discussing in amongst our small group, we shared an incident, and that incident, when we were breaking that, how and why would it had started, it is like definitely a person who is just behaving subconsciously. There is some belief system in it. There is so much of hearing and talking which is going on, which is not stopping, and which actually, without even their control on it, it becomes an attitude, because it is like a collective attitude. It is not an individual one, and then it becomes an individual behavior, because then they can't resist, because it is deeply imbibed in their subconscious, and that is why this is not going from the whole large community or society.
Thank you, Tarana. Thank you so much. Pil, Joe?
Yeah, I find it is a little bit challenging, really, because when we look at the racism, we just look at it, okay, you're being racist, but you don't break it down into this thing. Even though, yes, I can understand beliefs is something that the person believes this is my right, and I have to do it because this is what I believe in. This is my right. Now the difficulty was in the attitude and the behavior, because sometimes there is certain things that a person will be doing being racist, but they don't know that they are doing it unless if somebody pointed out to them and say, hey, you're being racist, and then they will be shocked and thinking, I'm not. I can just give an example. I remember went to I don't want to take long, but I remember I dropped somebody at the airport, and it's happened that there is another person went inside with that person, helping him with the briefcases and things like that. So I waited for a few minutes, and now these guys come to me and ask me to leave. Please, you're not allowed to stop here. And then I say, fine. I start rolling my car a little bit, but there is people that were there actually before me. He never said anything to them at all. And they were just chatting, and the car was there. He didn't tell them anything. So I start rolling and looking at the doors that the person that I'm waiting for should come out, and then we leave. He still come after me and ask me, please, I ask you to leave, get going. I say, hey, I'm waiting for somebody, and that's why I'm rolling. He took out the pen and tried to give me a ticket. And I stopped my car. I say, hey, are you racist or what? Don't you see those people? You'd never say anything to them. And he said, what? I'm not racist. I'm not racist. I say, okay, how am I gonna, these behavior, how am I gonna interpret it if you're following me? I'm a black guy, but you don't even talk to those people that were there before me, and you ask me to go. I start rolling. You still following me, asking me to leave. What is that? If it's not, that is not racist. So, and then the person came, and then we got into the car and we left. But he was shocked. He don't know that he was being racist to me. Why you don't talk to? Because your job is to ask everybody to leave. Then why you
Yes.
leaving those? And you're coming
So,
after me. As
you
a
are being
common
targeted.
person? For sure.
You are being targeted and profiled.
Oh, okay. Those are new
So,
terms now.
yeah. So we talk about racial profiling, and oftentimes we think it is only with police, but
Yep.
it can also happen in our workplaces and everywhere.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Bill, for sharing this. And those are very important because you also touch one aspect of racism. It is the unconscious bias that this person just wants you to live, because racism is so ingrained that people sometimes don't even want you to be in the space, in the airspace. And they can come up with a lot of reason why. Oh, I'm just doing my job. When in reality, as you say, Phil, the job, they're not doing it properly. If I was their supervisor, I will fire them because there is every other car there. So here I have someone who is not doing their job, but at the same time who is racist. And that's problematic for any organization. Racism, when we talk about racism, the Ontario Human Rights Commission says that racism is a belief that someone will think that their group is superior to others, that me and my people, we are superior to you. And racism can openly be displayed in racial jokes, slurs, or hate crime. And it can also be deeply rooted in people's attitude, their values, and their stereotypical belief system. An attitude, racism as an attitude or a behavior is based on the belief that race, because of your race, you will have certain kind of inherent cognitive and moral behavior trait. For example, you run into people who look at you because you are Black, they think that Black people are inherently, Black people are bad, that as a Black, you will be a thief, you might grab their purse. There is this attitude that is so ingrained. The moment they see you as Black or they see you as Asian, they have a picture for you. Racism is also a form of behavior, which is a behavior is an action, which is defined as an individual or an institution, action or practice to treat people differently because of their color or ethnicity. These days that we talk a lot about EDI and anti-racism, you see many organizations rushing out and hiring people and plugging them at the reception. And those people don't have any prospect to grow in the organization. They are just there as window dressing. We call it performative equity, diversity, and inclusion work. And it's good to bring those people, but it is important to move them to also allow them to move in the institution. Let me summarize this piece. When we talk about belief and attitude system, what is important for all of us to remember is that the belief and the attitude, they contribute to create what we call bias, stereotype, and prejudice. We are all biased, that's true. But the racial bias is when someone has an opinion or a preference that is really, really biased to the point that they can't make a proper judgment. So a bias is an opinion or a preference or inclination that limit someone's ability to make a fair, objective judgment. Oftentimes when someone is drunk, we say that they can't make an objective judgment. What do? We take away the car keys. So imagine someone who is so biased that they can't make a fair and objective judgment, and they still run the show in your organization. And they are racially biased. You can imagine what that will create. A negative racial bias contributes to a negative image. People end up having the negative image, a set image that is negative and that is based on false or generalized assumptions. So these are conceptions of people or a group that are totally negative. And they are created because there is a negative bias that helps them to form. The negative stereotype is when people look at you, whatever you do, they see it negative. And then when you racially negatively stereotype someone, You prejudge them. Doesn't matter whatever they do. They can behave like an angel, but your negative image of them will always see them as a devil. I give you an example. When I was doing my PhD, I come across a situation where one of my professors, when I send her a chapter, it will take her 3 minutes to reply to me. And her reply will always be, this is not working, this is not good enough. I went through this 2 times. Third time, I went to my supervisor, another professor, talked to him, and I say, you need to do something. Say, oh, you know, X just want you to excel. X just wanted to be a good student. I say, well, I am. And I couldn't do anything. So I went to the university higher administration and I file a complaint. I say, Dr. X, who is in my committee, I want to fire her because she's incompetent and I don't have time to supervise kindergarten. Instead of them answering my complaint, no, what they did is they talked to her and she came attack me and say, you know, I will ensure that you will never finish this PhD. So guess what I did? I filed a complaint to the police, the RCMP. Yeah, I filed a complaint because I felt like she was all the way on my LinkedIn and my Zoom, and she's always looking for information on me. That was the moment she realized that she has to step down. But the problem for me was this racial stereotyping she had about me. It doesn't matter whatever I do, as a Black guy, it was not good enough. And because of the attitude of my supervisor, academic supervisor, I also decided to fire him off my committee. So I get rid of all of them and I started from scratch. So prejudice, prejudgment is so bad. When people have a set image and prejudge you, whatever you do, they will end up also treating you differentially. And differential treatment is what we call discrimination. Most of us, we know that in our institutions. However, discrimination is individuals to individual. It can be also institutional discrimination. When it becomes institutional discrimination, this is what we call systemic discrimination, which is in the policies and the practices and the culture of the organization. It can be in hiring. For example, you see wonderful organizations saying, you know, posting a job and saying must have English as a first language or must be fluent in English. What does that mean? We all speak the Queen English with just different flavor. But should have a mother's tongue, English as a mother's tongue, that clearly tell you who they're looking for. And many other things. How many of us in some organizations have we worked there for 20 years, but every time there is a supervisor or a manager position, we are passed. So systemic discrimination can be also in the culture, in our society. And it can be also the culture of our organizations. So this framework, I wanted to look at it and just think about when we're talking about racism and racial discrimination, where it goes. I think I have one hand up there. Garrison, it was you?
Yes, and thanks, Peel, for what you said. I was really struck by the freedom demonstration and the way that group was treated compared to the other groups, whether it's First Nations, Black Lives Matter. I was really astonished at the patience that was observed. And I think that was where I realized as well again, that, hey, you know, different groups are treated differently, obviously, but
yes.
To the lengths, I was surprised, to the lengths.
I'm happy that you brought this because definitely many of us in this line of work, we were just amazed how civilized our police just became overnight. It was quite interesting that they even go to people and pleasing them and begging them to leave. Beg. And then we came around and justified this with the Emergency Act, that these people were a threat to our democracy. But they were treated by begging them to leave. So a lot of contradiction. So thank you so much, Garrison, for bringing this up. One thing I want to add is that racism is harmful. It is harmful, and all of us, we know that racism impacts people's health, depression, stress, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, suicidal thought. Racism also impacts people's participation, whether it is social or cultural, economic integration, or it is political integration. Political, just the last federal election, we heard from the Green Party leader then, Anime Paul, that she hit the glass ceiling and that she felt like it was targeted and it was racial. That's why she lost not only her seat, but she couldn't go anywhere. And how often this happens. If you haven't heard that BIPOC people are being impacted in their health and well-being by racism, talk to people, open up a space to have those conversations. It doesn't mean that you are the one doing it to people, but allowing people to share and listening can help you to be the ally you want to be, because we all want to be ally to people. Another things I want to say, and maybe summarize this piece, is that when we talk about racism, there is different forms of racism, but at the end of the day, they all intersect. You remember when we say bias all the way to the system, it is the same. The belief and the attitude, whether they are in the individual, at the end of the day, they can also be supported by the policies and the practice and the culture of the organization. So the individual might have belief and action that will serve to perpetuate oppression of others. Those can be conscious or unconscious. They can be externalized or internalized. And then when we talk about racism, interpersonal racism, the interaction between people will be across the differences, not only the race, but it can be more than the race. As a Muslim woman, we know Muslim women, oftentimes, even they can be Black, but oftentimes people target them based on their hijab as a Muslim. So that's Islamic racism against Muslim, and the fact that they are visible Muslim. But it doesn't matter, you can be Arab looking or Black looking. If you are a Muslim and you wear in hijab, you might experience 2 or 3 layers of racism. The institutional and the systemic racism is something that many of us, oftentimes we deal with it, or we are part of it, and we don't know what to do about it. Now, when I talk about systemic racism, I usually have an exercise for you. And the exercise I ask you is, what are the systems, now that you know what is the definition of racism, whether it is individual or it is interpersonal or system, what are the systems you think in your organization and workplaces, do you think, what are those systems that you think may support, reinforce, or perpetuate racism? And since we are talking about Black Lives Matter, and we're talking about Black History Month, I was even tempted to ask you, what will be those systems that support, reinforce, or perpetuate anti-Black racism in your institution or workplaces? 2 minutes, go ahead, put it in the chat. Jenny, Garrison, and maybe, yeah, just the 3 of you, if you can, and Annie, if you can each read the 3 of those examples. Okay, let's hear from people, 1 minute. Yeah.
There's nothing I can see in the chat at the moment, but I have an example off the top of my head.
Go ahead, give it to us.
systems that I know that may support, you know, anti-Black racism in the institution in general. I'm not talking about diversity here, but I know there's been a lot of talk over what is considered professional hairstyles and what is non-professional in that way. And a lot of times the conversations are surrounding different types of hair, and I know that that has been in the news lately, and that's that system in which we are telling people what is professional, what is not, is also lining out what, you know, that perpetuates that underlying anti-Blackness when we're talking about different hairstyles, different types of hair, and so on.
Yes.
Somebody else is saying Eurocentric
supremacy.
Yep, and definitions of success. Honestly, somebody said it doesn't matter where we are personally or professionally. Our systems are designed to divide and conquer. We all follow white colonial system and structure. Somebody else is saying not talking about Black or Black culture until the Black History Month, for example. This should be an ongoing discussion all year long. Somebody else is saying lack of forum or committee to bring up different perspectives from a wider range of staff. Somebody else saying, well, I appreciate this space to talk about anti-Black racism. I do feel that we need to have an ongoing and intentional conversation about anti-Black racism beyond Black History Month. Somebody has said job descriptions, hiring practices, complaints, resolution process, hiring practices. Again, in my area of work, only white people are in leadership positions. When a POC applied for a leadership position, my colleague was told she met the criteria for the job, but did not fulfill the expectation of the selections committee. The selection committee is made up of all white folks.
Yeah, and one of the things, let me talk about the complaint process that I also was hired, and this organization was paying my company $78,000 to do EDI. And we ask them, or I ask them openly, we want to see the exit interview of people who have filed a racist complaint and who left. And we want to know why they left. HR department, after 1 month, they refuse to share with this. So I send the check back to this company and say, here's your money, I don't want to do this work. Because the problem with filing anti-racism complaint, and this, all of us, we need to keep that in mind. It is to ask yourself what happened to that person in the next 6 months to 1 year. 85% of the studies have found people who file anti-racism complaint in organization in Canada end up leaving or being pushed out. They leave because it is clear, they make it clear to them that they don't belong and they get tired and leave. Or they are pushed out where the company will go around after 6 months, pretend that your job is obsolete, we don't have funding anymore for it, and your contract is terminated. So if you want to do anti-racism work, you have really to look at your complaint process. Because easy solution is to push the person out, and that's not EDI or anti-racism work. So one thing I want to say is that systemic racism is a system in which public policies, institutional practices, and cultural representation and other norms in our organization will work in various often reinforcing ways to perpetuate group racial inequities. When we talk about it, I just want to give you the template of the tree. The analogy of the tree is that when you think about systemic racism, think about the leaves and the branches as everyday manifestation of racism and intersection. When I say racism, I talk about racism and otherism. So the leaves of the tree is every day. Oftentimes we talk about microaggression, but it is there. BIPOC people live it, discriminatory and hostile interpersonal interactions and impact, physical aggression, sexual aggression, insult and intimidation, racial profiling, discrimination in employment, and you name it. Just yesterday, there was a FOI, Freedom of Information piece that was published by one Black lady. After 8 months, fighting the federal government to get the information in the investigation report about sexual harassment she experienced in the workplace as a Black woman. Only come yesterday after 8 months. And what was interesting is that not only she didn't get listened to, but she was moved from that department to another department, and the perpetrator stayed where he was. So when we talk about the trunk of the tree, we're talking about the ideologies, the belief system, the policies, the laws, the rules, the regulation, the culture of the organization. But if you cut the branches and you cut the trunk, you still have a tree staying, because the roots of racism is definitely, like someone say in the chat, it is colonialism, it is white supremacy, it is capitalism, patriarchy, it is imperialism. But most importantly, it is a system that all of us, we contribute to. We are at the same time impacted by it, but we contribute to it, either consciously or unconsciously. Systemic racism is not something that a few people or institutions choose to practice. Instead, it has been a feature of our social, economic, and political system in which we all exist. So we exist in systemic racism. Again, I want to remind you this connection between the individual and the system and how we intersect and interact with it. So I talked about anti-Black racism, but I just want to say that anti-Black racism in February is also deeply embedded in the Canadian institutions, policies, and practices, to the point it became part of our system. My people say that racism against Black people is older than the world because it is embedded in all the religious and spirituality. Everywhere they talk about how Black people have been cursed. And I asked one person one time, I said, well, if that's the case, how Noah went around to have a Black baby if he was white? So systemic anti-Black racism doesn't only affect Black health and wellness, but it also affects Black people's social, cultural, and political participation and their access to opportunity, and most importantly, to justice. Now, my friends, there is a good news for all of you. You can do something against racism. You can use your power and privilege, because we all have power. We all have privilege. It can be white privilege. It can be male privilege. Privilege can be bad, but the privilege I want to call on is the positive privilege we all have. Let me give you an example. As a Black person born in Senegal, in my tribe, I had a male privilege. I know how much my parents have invested in me, the firstborn and the boy, compared to my sisters. When in reality, when I was in first year university in biology, my younger sister, who didn't get a chance to go to university, was the one helping me with my homework. So don't tell me I was smart. I relied on her until I was second year, because I couldn't understand what hell was going in class. And I will come home and cry that she helped me. That's male privilege. How did I use my male privilege? Later, when I finished school, I called the village meeting and I forced the elders to let the girls to go to school. And I took on myself to pay the room and the board of 3 girls to go to the next city in high school for 4 years and beyond to the university. Later, other young people in the village created a bank account and the money started flowing. Now, the good news is that 2 of those girls are the nurses and the director of the school in my village. Never heard of. So you have privilege, you can use it to change the status quo. However, privilege, explaining to someone that they have privilege, it is like trying to explain to a fish what it meant to be wet. Many of us will say, oh no, I don't have privilege. I work very hard to get what I have today. That's not privilege, my friend. That is called meritocracy. Privilege is systemic. It is embedded in the system, like racism is embedded in the system. So I want you to use those privileges. Now I'm going to summarize all this, and maybe I quickly just go and talk about racism, anti-racism. Many people say, what should I do when I face racism? Well, very good, very simple. You can interrupt. You can say to the person, excuse me, sir, but you cannot say what you just said now. If someone call me the N-word and you are witnessing, you can stop them by saying, what you just called Moussa is not right. You can call it a discrimination. Or you can express upset feeling when you see something wrong going on. You can disagree with them. If someone say, oh, all you Muslims are terrorists, you can tell him there is almost 1.6 billion Muslims in the world. If we are terrorists, you will not have a ground to stand on because we will blow everything. Challenge them to critically think the reality. Ask them, if this is the case, what happened to the Crusade? What happened to Northern Ireland? Question the validity of what people say. Point the hurtful nature of what they say. Put the offender on the spot, meaning call them out, or help the offender to self-reflect, meaning call them in. Support the victim. Yeah. Go stand by the victim. Ask them what you can do to help them. Approach other witnesses if you feel like you are too weak to take it on. Or ask other people to involve. Well, you are, either way, you are a witness and a bystander. You can't afford to say you didn't see it. The problem though is many of us, here is where we are. When we witness racism, we just don't want to see it and we don't want to hear. We diswitness. And there is so many stories. People say, oh my God, I'm a weak person. I can't do anything. I'm scared if I do something, I get involved. That diswitnessing. The passive witness is someone who say, I saw it, I heard, but I don't know what to do. That's okay, but it's not acceptable because you saw it. What you can do is, if you can't intervene directly, intervene indirectly. What we want you to be is an active witness, meaning take action now or later. In George Floyd murder, the person who filmed, although they didn't know what to do at that moment, the film saved the day when those white police officers went to the judge and tell a long stream of liars. When the film came out, it proved that everything they say was a lie. So an active witness take action now or later. You can be also an ethical witness. And the ethical witness is the person who really challenges the whole system and change it. They don't only stop at intervening, they go deep and look at the policies and the processes and the culture and try to understand what is going on there, like the hiring practices, the interview process. They look at, all the policies and all the culture of the organization, and they try to change. Anti-racism work, as George Sefardeh of Toronto University said, is an action-oriented strategy for institutional systemic change that will help you to address racism and the interlocking system of social operation. So that means you really need to be intentional to be able to do it. However, my friend, one thing I really insist is that to become an anti-racist ally and conspirator, what is the most important thing you do? First and foremost is don't ignore racism because it makes you feel uncomfortable. If you do so, tomorrow you will ignore sexism, homophobia, and I can tell you, along that journey, they will catch you, because they will do something to you and no one will be there to witness for you. And as human beings, we need to do this work. But again, do anti-racism work in a way that bring all of us together as human beings and Canadian, not in a way that break us into silos and groups. So beyond allyship is to be a co-conspirator so that we see each other as human beings and we do this work together. But we do it courageously, we do it humanly, and we do it without delay. February is Black History Month, but I can tell you the real Black History Month is 365 days. And it is every day. And it is a history for all of us as human beings. And I hope that this conversation today was helpful for all of you. Thank you. Garrison, back to you.
Oh, this was fantastic. And I do understand if some of you have to go, this was a rich conversation and we'd like to take a few questions. I'm also putting in the chat, let me just see here. A bit of a shameless plug for my sister, who's a director, and she actually directed the Black History Month Heritage Minute for this year. And she got a shout out from the Prime Minister as well. So follow her. She's doing a lot of innovative work in the space of anti-racism, but also LGBTQ as well. So any questions, and let's just take the live questions. The chats are there. We'll have maybe time for 2 questions. I do understand if people have to run, but this has been a real rich discussion. So hands up if you'd like to ask a question. I don't see any questions. I will just ask a quick question then. Getting back to the demonstrations we've seen, I had a weird feeling, and as they would say in the Caribbean, oh, I've got Samar has a question. They say I have a funny feeling in the Caribbean or in Guyana, where my parents are from, when I saw the flag, the Canadian flag, the way it was used, and it was sort of used as a tool, I think. And we've seen that with the American flag. So I just felt an uneasiness. And there were some media stations that actually picked up on that and reported on how the flag was being used alongside of these other symbols. So I just, it was just a comment on my part. Samar, you have your hand up. Let's take your question.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Doctor, for a very informative session today. Thank you. It's just something, it's related to me, my experience. I'm this kind of person who, if I experience any racism and improper action from someone, I respond. I don't keep it on me. But I actually experience the front person who can, I go out of the conversation knows that was directed to me, and I feel bad and I feel offended, but I cannot point it. I cannot tell this person that, do you mean this? Did you mean that? I mean, and it's happened multiple times that I feel uncomfortable to speak to this person and I cannot reply. I cannot respond because I cannot point it out. So, because the last thing you just mentioned is how to respond and how to stop. I couldn't find an answer. I couldn't find a way to respond to this person who speaks generally and involve himself in the conversation and the thing that the issue that talk about. But I know it's deeply. I know it's meant for me, for my culture, for my people. You know. But I can't answer, I can't reply, because if I say anything, just, where did you get this from? That's not what I meant. I was speaking even about myself, you know?
Yeah. So what you can do, Samara, is definitely that happened to many of us. And it can be also just because of power issues, the power differential. Sometimes it is also cultural. I know that sometimes because we come from a culture where, we're not direct communication. We try to save face. We try to save the face of the person, and we try to manage them. When in reality, in this culture, you are direct. You tell people what you think, and you tell them how it affects you. How do I address this kind of situation when it happened to me? And God knows it did happen to me. I sometimes paraphrase what the person just said and say, I think I might be wrong. I might not have understood what you say really, but correct me if I'm wrong. This is what you said, and then repeat it. And oftentimes it can help the person to self-reflect and say, oh, no. I may have said this, but I didn't mean it this way. And then you start building there and say, well, I know you didn't mean it this way, but here's how it affected me. It is very difficult, very challenging approach, but sometimes that's the same way. One example I did was, I remember, and this was a few years ago, with someone who is in a higher position than me, yada, 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 and who said something about Asian people. And, and I'm sitting there and listening to them. And after I say, well, Dr. X, this is quite interesting. I would never thought that you will be talking about Asian people this way. If someone have ever told me that this is what you think about Asian people, I will never believe them. And say, oh, what? What do you mean? I say, well, maybe we put it in bracket, and I want to let you know my wife is Asian, and what you say is very insulting to Asian and to me and my family. So it is how I feel. And I don't think you are racist, Dr. X. And I gave him a way out by saying, I don't think you are racist. And boom, he took it. And he backpedaled until he was in the mud and apologized. Mm-hmm. But it was very tricky for me because power base, it was very tough, but I just couldn't let it go.
I think that's
next time I will have this power to do it.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing example, and we're gonna actually, Dr. Magassa, if you can put your contact information up on the chat, up on the screen again, people can take that if they've got questions to contact you. And we can. These are baby steps if you kind of having trouble to communicate, Samar, what you've expressed. But it's tough for all of us, but just talking about it is great. It's a good start. And I'd like to thank the marketing team, an amazing job for putting together our diversity talks. We will have at least 6 or 7 of these talks. Next, it's women leading in the new normal. And Neelam will be leading that discussion, and we'll have some guests there. And I look forward to this and your continued support. Again, Dr. Magassa, thank you so much. I mean, we had you last year. It was a different presentation this year, another rich presentation, and I look forward to seeing you again next year for our Black History Month. So thank you, everybody. Take care, and this is just the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you, and I just put my contact in the chat. I want to, Garrison, maybe quickly, I want to also say thank you to all the people who participated today. And I know some of you are doing great work in different areas of your work. Please get in touch because I don't only do this training, I also look for people who have something to share and see how I highlight their work. At the university, sometimes I bring in guest speakers, I bring in panels. So if there is any work you're doing in any areas, whether with refugees and anything, get in touch because your work, like my work, need to be highlighted and recognized. And also we have something to teach and to share with this country and with ourselves. So thank you so much.